Welcome to the lecture on client-server model. In this lecture, you should able to understand what is client-server model and how it works. The couple of things that you will learn in this lecture. First, you should able to define the definition of client-server model. Then you should able to explain what is client-side and server-side in general English terms. Then you should able to draw your own client-server model. Okay, so let's look at the lecture objective now. After completing this lecture, you should able to explain client-server model concept. You should able to explain terms like client-side and server-side, and also you should able to draw a simple client-server diagram. So we'll go in the details of each of these concepts. Let's take a step back and understand how the client-server model works from the things that we use today. Imagine you are trying to access Facebook from a mobile or from a computer or from an iPad. Right, you type in facebook.com, or if you have a mobile app, you try to open it. So all these devices basically connect back to Facebook and they fetch all the details and then show it to us. That's a very simple way of accessing Facebook application. But did you ever wonder what happens at the Facebook side? What's going on at the Facebook side and what kind of things are available at the Facebook? Any guess? Well, Facebook has a server, right? And this server actually holds all the things that you are accessing on the Facebook application. It could be a music file, it could be an information, your post information, it could be a video, it could be an image. All these media files are called as resources on the server. So whenever you're trying to access this application via the Facebook, the server is responding back to you by giving this information back to your devices. So let's use this concept and define a definition for client-server model. Okay, if you strip off the Facebook application, that's the company, and basically if you strip off us, so the communication actually happening between two systems. The left-hand side is called as client, the right-hand side is called as server. And these two systems basically communicating with each other within common language. And if it's a web-based application, then there is a web protocol called HTTP, using which they are basically exchanging the information. Okay, so if you have to define a client-server model, here is the definition. Client-server model is an architecture where server holds all the resources like your media files, your videos or your images, and client will access it whenever required. So the request has to come from the client to say that I want to see this. The server takes that request and then send whatever information is requested by the client via the communication protocol. That could be an web protocol, which is an HTTP. So this is a standard definition. If someone asks you what is a client-server model, remember this definition. It's an architecture where server holds all the resources and client will access it whenever required. So in the client-server model, server holds all the resource and client will make a request to get those resources. It's as simple as that. Keep it in a very simple terms when you explain about client-server model. Okay, so let's move on. So let's look at the two terminology that we use in describing this model. One is client side and one is server side. So from the definition here, the client side is basically all the left hand side, could be your computer, your iPad, your phone, your laptop, is called as client side because he is the one who is requesting the information. And right hand side is a server side which has all the resources and it's basically taking the request and giving us all the information that we have requested for, right? So that's basically your client side and server side terminology. So if you have to explain to someone what is client side, what is server side, you can use a simple definition. Client side will make the request to access the resource saying that, hey, I need these files, can you give it to me? Then server side actually accepts that request and provide the resource back to the client. Okay, so remember this definition, and I give you one tip. If you want to remember this, always use this in your terminology. So when you talk to someone, when you're explaining this concept, use client side and server side instead of saying client and server and browser and iPhone or PC. Don't use those words. You can combine all those concepts into simple terms, which is called as client side and server side. Okay, let's move on. So here is one simple exercise that I want you to do. Take a paper and draw a simple client server model with whatever we have discussed so far. Draw a very simple one. I'm not looking for a complex. Draw a simple client server model based on whatever you have understand till now. Then I'll show you my diagram and the right diagram that you have to use for client server model. So before that, I want you to think through what concepts you have understand and put down on a paper all those concepts. Okay, so pause the video now and I'll see you after a second. Okay, how did it go? So whatever is your diagram, if you have understand the concept clearly, then you should be drawing something like this. So you have different clients and then you have a server on the right hand side. The clients are making requests to the server to fetch the informations. So this is a simple definition I want you to remember. Client server model is an architecture where server holds all the resources and client will access it whenever required. Okay, let's move on. Okay, let's do the summary. So by now you should be able to explain client server model concept to anyone and also explain terms like client side and server side. And also you should be able to draw a client server diagram. Okay, that's all for this lecture. I'll see you in the next one.